got interrupted for just a second, and that, but we're just gonna, we've got a 3/4 of an inch seam. We're sewing it on the right hand side of the chalk mark. And even an industrial machine, I know a lot of people are really afraid of industrial machines because they can go really fast, but once you get used to them, you can actually just almost walk them. And so there's no sense in having to go really along, you know, really fast. Whenever I shift it, I always have the needle in the fabric so that it doesn't change the direction or make a little jaunt in the seam. And there's my mark that I made earlier, and I'm just on the right hand side of it. Now once I've got there, I can start tapering it out to the original seam. And I'm just going to go very gradually. What I want to end up with is that when I hit that other seam, I am sewing parallel with the seam. Tug this out just a little bit more. And here we go. I'm sewing parallel to the seam, and I want to go for a couple of inches and then do a tiny back tack because I don't want the stress of that seam to come undone. And then I'm just going to take and find right where they're coming together right here, and just go down 3 or 4 stitches and just start unpicking. And I'll go down 3 or 4 stitches and just kind of pull that, and that makes that go fairly quickly. Now, while you're learning, this is exactly how you need to do it, because you do not want to make a hole in your suit. You want to make sure that that you protect that at all costs. Every once in a while you will do it, it's unavoidable, but there's no sense in inviting trouble. And so you just kind of pull that out. Now, you're going to get some unraveling, don't panic about that. Just be careful not to make it any worse than it is. And then you can take, and you can see the stitching right here. You can just take and unpick that. And you want to go all the way down, unpicking that. And you can either do it from the side here, sometimes you can kind of get it going to where it'll pull through. This one's actually fairly tight. And go on the other side. If you there's a video earlier that shows how a sewing machine sews, and you can kind of see the mechanics and the trail of the thread, which is kind of interesting. So that's what we're doing. We're unpicking that little thread trail. It just kind of goes in and just wraps around the thread. The top thread wraps around the bottom thread wraps around the top thread, and it just sews a seam. Okay, now we've got this unpicked. And what we actually want to do is we want to lay that seam open, and you can just so that you kind of remind yourself where you're going, you can take and pin this. Again, kids' suits are really tricky to get into, and so I'm probably going to press this, working it from the outside with the sleeve board. And so I'm going to go up inside. And I'm just going to put a few pins in here to remind this where it's supposed to be. I'm just flattening that seam out underneath. It's really handy to have something around the arm of your machine so that you can keep your pins and needles handy. It's not real handy to have a needle that's got thread on it because it gets in your way. So I keep the threaded needles over on the pin cushion. Just take and continue to Just pin that seam open. And with my fingers, I'm just smoothing that seam allowance from this center seam out this way and pinning it flat. And then from this center seam this way and pinning it flat. And we'll go to the ironing board.